Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however, whatever time you're joining us from around the internet streets. But welcome to Member Stories. This is where our GenUnity community members share and unpack their stories. My name is Harry Harding. I'm joined by Program Coordinator at GenUnity, Whitney Sanchez, and we have two special guests, which we will get to right away. These two are GenUnity alums, and they are both driving immigrant justice in Massachusetts through MIRA. I'll start first with Sophia Diez-Zhang, who's an organizing operations specialist at MIRA Coalition. And we have Maroni Minter, who's an activism spans childcare reform, ACLU campaigns, and anti-racism organizing. MIRA is the largest New England coalition for immigrant rights and is pushing the Protecting Massachusetts Communities campaign, which we're going to learn a lot about today, which includes the PROTECT Act and the key budget wins for legal defense and citizenship support. So really excited to kind of just dive in and get more understanding of what that means and hear what the work that Maroni and Sophia actually doing on the ground with this work. Before we really dig in there, let's just start with a base level question. Like, how you guys doing? Like some people might not be familiar with GenUnity or familiar with you or the Protect Act. So, but first of all, how are you two doing? Start with you, Sophia. How you doing?
I'm doing good. It's a good day. We've been working hard on some of our policy priorities. And it's good to be here and grateful to get the opportunity to reconnect with GenUnity after a very just gratifying, fulfilling experience with their program. So feeling good.
Just a reminder, Sophia, you did the housing cohort, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
In fall 2024?
My gosh. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. Wow.
And Maroni, you were also in that same cohort, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
And how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I won't lie, I'm exhausted, right? I think 2025 was a lot, and it seems like 2026 has started the same way. There's been a lot going on, a lot to fight for our immigrant communities. So I feel exhausted, but there's a lot of work to do. So exhausted but ready to go.
Yeah. Starting us off with reminding us both of how 2025 left us, and then where we are in 2026, I think is a real thing. I think one of the things, though, it also reminds me of what I appreciate about the GenUnity community and members like you and Sophia is that despite how difficult it is, despite the climate we're in, like there are members like you who show up every day to do the work to get us to another side and to a better place around how hard things are. So just starting off there with some appreciation for you, you know.
We appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, I'm sure you're doing your part, right? Genuinely is doing their part. So we're all playing a different role and putting together. So, but certainly appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm. And Whitney, how you doing?
I'm good. This is really nice to have a co-host. I'm like, this is a change, and
I
I'm
am.
vibing with it. Yeah, I'm really excited to learn more about Mira and the work that you're doing, especially like what you're saying, Maroni. It's a challenging time. Like, there's a lot coming up, um, that for me wasn't underneath the surface, but I think a lot of things were bubbling, and here we are. And so I'm really interested um to essentially like pick your brains in terms of your work and the commitment that's required not only from you but also from the community, that is needed to succeed, right? And so yeah, I'm ready to get started if you are, Harry.
Oh, definitely ready. Definitely ready. So, I mean, we kind of, gave a little bit of a notice at the beginning just about the Protecting Massachusetts Communities campaign and the Protect Act. Just again, for those who may not be familiar with it, do you mind kind of giving us a little bit of background, a little bit of context about what that is? And Sophia, I'll ask you to start if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. So the Protect Act is, well, I'll start with a kind of more like bigger campaign that MIRA is part of, called the Protecting Massachusetts Communities Campaign, PMC. And this campaign is it's a statewide effort to ensure that immigrants in Massachusetts can live with dignity, safety, access to basic rights that everyone should have, regardless of their immigration status. And one of the pieces of proposed legislation at the center of that campaign is the PROTECT Act. And this is a bill that was introduced by the Massachusetts Black and Latino Legislative Caucus. And a big part of it aims to create clearer boundaries between local law enforcement and federal immigration enforcement, so that people can feel that they can engage with essential services without fearing for themselves, without fear of deportation or well-being. Yeah.
And what if this act, the work around getting this act done, what would that happen? What kind of change are we talking about that would happen for people on the ground day to day? Maroni, what would change in people's lives?
Yeah, great question. I think right now, a lot of our immigrant communities are living with a lot of fear and uncertainty, and will continue to unless we pass something like the Protect Act. There are a lot of like essential things that a lot of us take for granted, like being able to take your kids to school, being able to go to court freely, report a crime freely, seek medical care. And a lot of immigrants are scared of doing those basic things out of fear of detention or deportation. And we don't believe that anyone should have that holding like over their heads. So passing something like the Protect Act would alleviate that and like let immigrants live their lives. Yeah, in a general sense.
Yeah, and I would add to that, that the impact would be immediate and deeply personal, right? So for someone facing deportation, for example, having access to a lawyer could literally mean difference between staying with their family or being removed from the country alone, right? That's the legal side of it. But then, as Sophia alluded to, the Protect Act, if it passes, basically everyday life becomes less driven by fear, right? People will feel safer going to court, right? Because it will ban civil immigration arrest in court. People will feel safe reporting domestic violence, right? Speaking up about unsafe housing conditions, abused by their landlord. A lot of folks who are immigrants who are victim of these crimes do not report these crimes because they are fearful for that they will be asked by their immigration status, and that could lead to them being deported.
Yeah.
And so this bill, if passed, would give people kind of a peace of mind. And it would also ban they would prevent the state from signing any 287G agreement. And 287G agreement is an agreement that if signed, it would deputize law enforcement and turn police into ICE agent. Basically, it would give police officers the power to carry out immigration enforcement. And we don't want that. And so it's one of the reasons why we're really pushing hard to pass the bill. So just want to add a little bit more on what Sophia already mentioned.
Yeah, and we're already seeing stories. Some you might have seen in the news. A lot of them also go unreported, but like community stories of folks like going to critical medical appointments or going to appointments for a legal case, some for an immigration case, and just getting arrested right then and there for yeah, for like something so basic and essential. So yeah.
I have a question. So when it comes to the outcome of this campaign, what, you know, are there things that are challenging? Like, um, do you see this becoming a reality in terms of it passing? Do you see like what is the future of this? Like what are your um what is the word that I'm looking for? Yeah, like what are you expecting almost? Like what are you seeing?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, we're the largest, immigrant advocacy coalition in Massachusetts, I would say. And we have more than 150 member organizations across the state. And our role is really to bring people together, right? Is to convene all of these organizations, community groups, legal service providers, faith leaders, labor organizers, and directly impacted immigrants, right? To build that collective power. And so the role that we play a major role, I would say, in again convening strategy, aligning coalition priorities, and mobilizing our members into action. And so, because of our deep relationship with immigrant communities across the state, we are able to bring real lived experiences directly into the policy process, right? And so, for example, in my role, I help lead the political and advocacy strategy, working with legislators, coalition partners, and grassroots members to really move bold policy forward. And so a lot of this, again, it's really understanding who the players are, and how, also understanding that how immigration issues are related to other issues. Because at the end of the day, um, understanding that we are all fighting the same oppressor, right? If you believe in LGBTQ right, if you believe, you know, the rights, you know, criminal justice reform, if you believe in voting rights, right? The people who are against all of these things, you know, are the same people that we are fighting. So understanding how we are fighting the same oppressor and putting all of our eggs in one basket. And at MIRA, that's kind of the role that we see ourselves, the role that we're trying to play.
Yeah.
I would love. I want to actually dive a little bit more into deeper into the opposition, so to speak, and how that shapes and influences what MIRA does and what you two do in your roles at MIRA. But I want just putting that on on the shelf just for a moment, just to kind of give an opportunity to talk deeper about just you two and your specific roles. And Maroni, gave us some a little bit of insight into what you do. What does it look like on a day to day? Like take us to like the ground level of what it looks like for this kind of activism. And then I would, Sophia, following that, I'd love to kind of hear kind of similar from you, like a little bit about your specific role and what it looks like on a day to day.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good question. Look, I think in campaign, what people don't always see is that the real power, in my opinion, is in the relationship, right? And Sophia here, as an organizer, plays a big role in creating those relationships. And so a campaign like Protecting Massachusetts Communities, it only works because, again, we meet people where they are, and we keep directly impacted communities at the center of every decision, right? So that means listening sessions, um, leadership development. It takes one-on-one meetings and making sure that people um, mostly affected are shaping the strategy, not just being talked about, right? That they are at the table. And then, behind the scenes, it's also a constant work of meeting with legislators, right? And that's a big part of what I do. Organizing calls, an email from constituents, preparing testimony, building trust across the organization, and making sure that people stay engaged for a long haul, right? Because changes, as you all know, it takes time. Sometimes you lose, you gotta roll your sleeves and just come back next year, right? And so a lot of advocacy is invisible. I would say it's an invisible labor, but it's it's that steady organizing that moves policy, and it takes time, and it takes a lot of energy. It takes resources. So yeah, and I'll let Sophia build on more. But yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Maroni. No, yeah, there's definitely a lot of, as you said, invisible work or work that kind of happens behind the scenes. That's actually part of why I stepped into the organizing operations role fairly recently, because we had a growing need for more like logistics work, behind the scenes work, because I feel like when most people think like organizer, it's like that image of someone leading a protest and shouting into a megaphone. And that's a great part of it. That's a very fun part of it. But there's a lot of planning that goes into being able to do those kinds of things. And
Sophia, we may have very different ideas about fun. I'm just saying, I don't know, but it's all right. No judgment, no judgment.
yeah, but yeah, a lot of behind the scenes work. I think behind the organizing, behind the community events that we show up to, there is a lot of coalition building. As Maroni said, we're connected with other organizations across Massachusetts. There's a lot of coalition building, a lot of relationship building. So there's a lot of like trust that has to be built and earned in this line of work. And while policy and legislative work is a big part of efforts like the PMC, efforts like that are also about aligning dozens of organizations and then individuals within each of those organizations, that they all come from different backgrounds, they all have their own needs, priorities, they all have their own perspectives, and it's a matter of bringing that all together and seeing like what we have in common and where we can work together. So there's a lot of just like one-on-one correspondence and communication happening every day, email exchanges, phone calls, a lot of like meeting scheduling, facilitation. Sometimes there's like translation. Translators, interpreters are a rare resource, so you have to step into that role sometimes. Making sure that community voices are being centered in policy spaces, and pushing for that. And then there's like the logistical side of it, where, as I said, coordinating meetings, preparing materials for campaigns, action alerts, digital toolkits, tracking advocacy. Data is a big part of it. We have to like track all of our relationships, manage a lot of data, and of course, being able to pivot and have a plan B. Things in the state political scape can change overnight, and we have to know how to be ready for that, like be able to adapt and change our plans. So a lot of energy goes into those things.
So let me just make sure I summarize. What does it take to lead and organize a campaign of this sort? A lot. Is that right? Am I getting that? Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct. I just want to mention, just because Sophia mentioned translation, and one of the things that we are proud at MIRA is the majority of people working at MIRA are immigrant themselves, and we have about, I don't know how many languages spoken now within our staff. And so, because we also advocate for Language and Inclusion Act, understand that we have a very diverse immigrant communities. Some people are still on their way of learning English, and so they still do need some resources in the language that they speak. So a lot of staff at MIRA step up to translate a lot of our materials. And so that's because we are lucky to have such a very, very diverse staff who speak whether Haitian Creole, French, Chinese, Portuguese, Spanish. You can find that at MIRA. And so it's one of the things that we're very, very proud about.
As you should be. I want to go back. So I'm gonna because we're starting. This is stories. I had a conversation. So Diez-Zhang was one of the co-founders of GenUnity, as you all know. Who's also now he's the executive director for Partners in Democracy. We had a conversation last year. We were talking about a lot of things, but we were talking about coalition building, and particularly in this climate where there's such division, there's such angst, there's fear, there's all these different like dynamics of power, and we could we could paint the picture as desolate or as real as we'd like to, but the reality is there's a lot happening here, and we're having this conversation. And one of the things that I took from that conversation with Jaron is he was saying about it's sometimes there's a myth or a thought that like coalition building is just about aligning with those we agree with, right? And the reality is, by definition, coalition is about bringing all perspectives together, even the ones we don't disagree with. And I think for the magnitude of the work that you all are doing at MIRA, it begs the question to me is, what does it look like to work with opposition, to, even as you pointed out, Maroni, the fighting against the oppressor. The reality is, if to move, I think, anywhere forward on this issue, on all these issues, there's going to have to be some level of pulling support and coalescing with the opposition at some level to move forward. And I'm just curious, what does that look like? And how do you appeal essentially to those who may be diametrically opposed to the work that you're doing, or others who are maybe just maybe not supportive of the work? How do you work with those kind of perspectives?
So I think that's a really good question. Yeah, I think, look, if anybody tells you that they run a perfect coalition, I've never heard any such a thing as a perfect coalition, right? There are always some dynamics. For example, like the Protect Act, the Protect Massachusetts Communities campaign, right? It's a powerful statewide coalition it's rooted in immigrant justice, labor, civil rights, and it brings together different organizations, right? Right now we have organizations like MIRA, for example, the SEIU union, some of the big union in the state, including 32BJ, MTA, Massachusetts Teachers Association, and of course the ACLU of Massachusetts, right? And so you can understand that different coalition has, although people are bringing different experiences, different resources, but all of these organizations are also representing different communities, right? And so at the end of the day, I think you have to understand what is that one thing that you're all trying to accomplish? What is that one value that you have in common? And always go back to that. People may have different ways of getting there, but do we all know where we want to get, right? It's that destination that we want to get, and keeping that at the front and center. People might take different ways of getting there, but let's keep in mind where we all want to go, right? And so, even being in this coalition, so for example, not to pick on the ACLU, they are a national, they have a chapter in Massachusetts, but they are also a national organization, right? And so some of their agenda include some of their national agenda. And so sometimes you know, there is that, and then you have MIRA, whose our agenda is here, right? Protecting our immigrant communities here in Massachusetts, and that's what we do. That's not a second or a side project for us, right? And so for some organization, that can be like a side project, and not all invested in, and it can be frustrating at the time when those of us who are all invested, this is our number one project, and to be derailed by some people whose this is their second project, um, it can be frustrating, right? And I can, Sophia can speak to this. There are times where we will create materials, how Sophia would, and then the coalition will get together. Oh, we want to do something different after you put all that energy, all the resources to put this together, right? And so understand, okay, we might have some conversation internally, express our frustration internally, but at the end of the day, understand it's a coalition. These are the dynamics. How do we get back to work? How do we keep at the front center that value, that one thing that we all trying to work on, that destination that we all trying to get to? So I think I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Well, it's a good example of illustration of even with groups who are on the same side of an issue, like ideologically, even within that, there's room for disagreement, conflict, challenge. So I think that's a good point. I mean, I'm curious about what does it look like when there's seemingly no common ground at all. What it's like to work in those spaces too.
To be honest with you, some people are just far gone. If there's no common ground, then there's no need for us to work together. That's the short answer. If for us at MIRA too, is when we talk about whether it's members, we look at their values, their organizational values. Do they align with ours, right? Look, at the end of the day, there are organizations and those are individuals who believe what they believe that I will never try to reach and bring back. They're so far gone, right? And so we have a lot of work to do, and we have to spend our energy where we think we have common ground, and less on trying to bring people we feel like we just have no common ground. Does that make any sense?
Yeah. I'll also add briefly that when it comes to legislative advocacy and like talking to legislators, um, part of the work is making sure that that like legislators hear us and hear what we're saying, and like continuing to like reinforce our arguments and our advocacy, because they are constantly in the state house hearing what opposition is saying, and so we need to like reinforce clearly in their minds like what we are fighting for. So a lot of our energy goes into them rather than like towards trying to convince the opposition, at least in our current work. Yeah.
I guess
I see a question brewing, Whitney. I see the wheels turning.
I guess I want to move forward into combining how your personal experiences have motivated you both to do this work. Because Maroni, you weren't born in this country, right? And so how has your experience moving to this country and also working in advocacy has shaped your experience as well as your professional life? And then also Sophia, you have a mixed background, so how has that shaped your work as well as your I guess your value system and inspires you to kind of keep going? So anyone can go forward. Anyone can go first.
Yeah, I can start. I think for me, it's this work is deeply personal because I'm an immigrant myself, and as a Black immigrant, I have often had to challenge people's assumption about who immigrants are, and what our stories are. Um, there are a lot of people, a lot of misconception, and I have learned that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is sit with someone, right? Share your live experience and make the issue more human. Um, I think my story, I would say, has taught me that immigrant justice is not abstract policy, right? It's about dignity, belonging, and really the right to live fully, right? So for me, coming from Gabon to Vermont, one of the second widest state in the nation, um, it really taught me that belonging is not something you wait for or is handed to you. It's something that you build. It's something that the community builds together. Um, and I think that my experience living in Vermont has also made me deeply aware of um, my identity, what it means to be Black, to be African immigrant, and really navigating systems that often don't fully see you, right? And so that experience sharpened my understanding of why advocacy matters, right? It taught me that people deserve people deserve systems that recognize the humanity, and it's why I fight so hard to make sure others don't feel invisible, right?
Mhm.
Um, and also living in Vermont made me realize and embrace my Blackness, right? The first time I was called a nigger was in Vermont. Um, I grew up, my father, so I'm mixed race. My father is white and my mother is Black. Um, so I grew up, this idea of white being better. Um, it's it's not just here, right? So I grew up being raised in a village where most people are darker than me, and so I was called a white boy. I was treated as such. I was a white boy. All of my peers, all the older, they called me Billy. That's my dad's name, Little Billy. My parents, my family, all of them treated me as if I was white. I was told I was white. I had to be smart. I had all of these expectations um, uh, because I was told I'm white. You have to be either a lawyer, either a doctor. Um, and so I actually grew up thinking I was white because I look around me, I'm lighter skinned than everybody else. And then when I was in school in Vermont, um, when I was called, this is literally in the cafeteria during lunchtime, in front of full cafeteria, in front of the principal who was there. I think that experience really kind of made me realize, okay, my true identity. It made me embrace my identity. I think that kind of led me on this road of advocacy, right? Um, and I think that's why my career, as you mentioned earlier, Harry, as the campaign director with the ACLU of Vermont, I led the campaign focusing on racial justice, criminal justice reform. Um, so yes, the work that I do has truly been shaped by my own identity, my own experience, and my own um, story, if you may. And so it's personal. Um, some of the things for me that you will not see on my resume, I would share is that I'm a co-founder of the Waterbury Anti-Racism Coalition. The reason why I founded that organization was really to make sure that the town of Waterbury in Vermont is a welcoming town to everybody, regardless. I'm a father. Um, I have a son who's 12 years old. One of the things that I'm proud that I accomplished before I left Vermont is there was a school named Thatcher Brook Elementary School, and Thatcher was a slave owner. And so when we found out that this school, which my son, who will come to attend, was named after a slave owner, one of the first things that I decided to do as a co-founder of that organization is to lead a campaign to change the name of the school. And for me, again, that was personal because I was in the process of bringing my son from Africa who was going to go to that school, and I did not want him to attend a school that was named after a slave owner. And I was proud that the school, the town, and the community rallied behind our proposal, and we changed the name of that school before my son arrived to the United States.
Oh.
And so again, going back to when I said it's personal, that's one of the example why this work is personal.
It's very cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious, Sophia, you know, from your standpoint, we just heard Maroni break down kind of his arrival to this work and the personal relationship. What came to you, and what do you think of when you think about your own journey and arrival to this work and your personal relationship to it?
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of what Maroni said resonated a lot. And I can absolutely agree that this work is very personal. My family and background definitely helped bring me to this work. So I'm of course not an immigrant myself, but my parents both are. One is from China, the other is from Uruguay. So I grew up with this like mixed culture, this multiculturalism, with like bridging different cultures, where I in a way felt like I didn't really belong anywhere. Like here in the US, I have a lot of white friends that are like very clear on the fact that I'm multicultural, that I'm mixed. Um, and and then I go to Uruguay, or China, which I'm very grateful for the privilege I haven't been able to go there at all and spend time with family. Um, and at the same time, like when I go to Uruguay, I'm like the American gringa, like, and then in China, um, I don't really fit quite in because I'm not familiar with like the local Chinese slang or colloquialisms. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I've spent a lot of my life just like reflecting on those differences. And I think growing up, I learned to like see that there is actually a lot of beauty in power and like the ability to find commonality in those differences and like bridge different things together. I and I think that because of that background, it made me more sensitive to noticing how systems here in the US can feel both necessary and sometimes, or not sometimes, a lot of the times, inaccessible, or unfair at the same time. Um, and having had that experience shapes a lot of how I approach the work that I do. I want to be a part of making sure systems are more navigable, more accessible, more humane, more responsive to the people that they're supposed to serve. I've learned the importance of being able to hold in coalition work. Like I've learned the importance of being able to hold multiple perspectives at a time, and building trust in the face of that. And yeah, just like being able to see the power and beauty in like diversity and difference.
I want to just affirm, I think, what Whitney had said earlier, just about how much, and for both of you, just how much your personal relationship to this work has to be regarded and appreciated. Just hearing the way you both have spoken about how you arrived to this work, but why it matters to you, even from when we started the conversation, I think is just something that we can't overemphasize. And so that is both a testament to you individuals, it's a testament to your family and those who cared for you and helped you shape your worldviews. And I also think that it's, I hope in part, if nothing else, a testament to the work and to your connection with GenUnity, and some of the work that you've been able to be more passionate about through to your connection to GenUnity. And I want to give us an opportunity to talk a little bit about your connection to GenUnity before we close out the conversation today. Just quickly, and this is just, I have to say this because it's just in me, and particularly after hearing Maroni, your testimony, and Sophia, your reflection too. I was a MECO student, and I grew up in Dorchester, mostly Black, brown neighborhood, but I was a MECO student and went to Belmont, all white, affluent community. And my daughter, who is going to be a senior in Wayland High School, is now is also a MECO student. Similar kind of dynamics. And when I grew up, been called many a time. Was also called white boy when I came home. So I got racism when I went to school, and then when I came home and it was home, I got, oh, you sound like a white boy. So I got that. So part of that story resonated with me a lot, Maroni. But what's hurtful to say out loud is a couple of years ago, if you've been following the news at all, around Wayland High School and the Wayland community has had history of racial tension. And a couple years ago, as my daughter is preparing for Christmas vacation, they had to basically interrupt school because someone in the school had called the principal of the school, superintendent of the schools, who was a Black man at the time, wrote the N-word in graffiti on one of the public facades of the school building. And so while most children at that time of year are thinking about, those who celebrate Christmas are thinking about what's under the tree, or most of the other kids are thinking about, what they're going to do on school vacation. Here is my daughter, or even thinking about math. She's thinking about the fact that her skin color is causing this kind of racial tension in her school. She can't even concentrate on school. She can't even concentrate on holidays because of this racial tension. And as a parent, feeling almost powerless to be able to do anything about stopping that or preventing that in the moment just felt really, it's just hurtful. And what resonated with me in hearing Sophia's testimony is this: you talked about belonging and the power of bringing together multiple perspectives, and there's the thread there with belonging is more than just it being something that feels good. It doesn't just feel good to belong. It's more about the idea of what it looks like when multiple people, regardless of their worldviews, backgrounds, they have a shared purpose, and they find that shared purpose, and they find an interest in moving forward together as a community or as a coalition because of that shared purpose. And that is just something to acknowledge. Again, both of you, as we've had this to each of you and to the MIRA Coalition, for the work that all of you are doing to try to really like help that be illuminated, that this is about finding shared purpose, and the work it takes to create that is to say it's not easy is a understatement beyond belief. But rambling a little bit, but I just wanted to give that perspective because I really appreciated that. Giving us an opportunity now to kind of bring it back to your stories. I would love to hear from both of you really how you characterize your relationship with GenUnity, like kind of, how you started your relationship with GenUnity and kind of what it has brought from a meaningful perspective to you in relationship to the work that you do now, professional, personal, or otherwise.
I know for myself, when I started with GenUnity, I feel like organizing, part of the nature of that work, at least at MIRA, is that you're like constantly moving and thinking about the next thing, like constantly going. And it can get tiring and you can burn out from it really easily. And something that I was very grateful to GenUnity and the housing justice cohort for was being able to just slow down and meet folks that were that had like very deep lived experiences, and to be able to hear their stories and learn how often folks being directly impacted are like the ones with the solutions and like need to be like given or like have like offered like the opportunity to like have a platform in advocacy or policy spaces. And so it was just, I think it like helped to reaffirm and deepen my understanding of, it was also going into like housing justice. So I went in like wanting to learn more about the connection between housing justice and immigrant justice. So I was also learning about building like cross movement power, kind of weaving together different issues and grounding them in like the lived experiences that I was hearing about.
Yeah, just to add to that, I second everything Sophia said. I think for me, I kind of talked about this earlier. I think GenUnity for me reinforced, a lasting change happens when people, right, across different movements, see their struggles as connected. Because at the end of the day, whether it's immigrant justice, racial justice, economic justice, housing, Sophia mentioned education. These are all deeply linked, right? And I also think that the cohort helped me think more expansively about coalition, not just as alignment around one issue, but as a long-term shared power. And that perspective continues to shape how I build partnership today. So yeah, that's what I would add about GenUnity.
That's really cool.
That was
Yeah. To know that GenUnity has shaped your work in some way, or you kind of lead with something that's differently because of your experience, is really cool. And I loved how in this conversation, because we're coming to an end, but I think one thing that I really do want to land on is the sense of belonging. And it's something, so I think in terms of my life, because I'm also mixed as well. So when Sophia, when you were talking about your experience, I feel that exactly. You know, some people assume you are one thing when that's not who you are at all, right? And so I think the sense of belonging is very much a theme that has occurred in my life, but I think everyone in some shape or form, regardless of what you might see or what you might assume, I think questions it, right? Their sense of belonging. It's part of survival. When you think of tribes, when you think of even back to like, you know, forever ago, that's like one of the most essential things when it comes to surviving and to survival. And it's highly linked to anxiety and depression within our system, within our society, this lack of belonging that people feel. And so I think across all of the differences, or even like the linked of the issues that we are working on with you both in terms of immigration justice, all of it is linked to belonging in some shape or form, right? The belonging, the right to have equality, the right to just accessibility. And I think the root of that is belonging. And so it's really nice to hear more about your work um, and to hear how like strongly you're supporting this and really working for it. But it's also been shaped by your experiences, your personal experiences. So I really appreciate your time, as well as, you know, the things that you have shared with us that have been personal. But I also want to ask, are there any call outs? So if our folks who are listening, for folks who are listening, do you have any links or any information if they want to get involved, or want to reach out or anything like that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. First off, thank you so much, Whitney and Harry, for having us at all, and for sitting with us and asking great questions and giving us a space to share. But yeah, we would love for folks to get involved more with MIRA. We of course have some action alerts going on right now with the Protect Act, as we've talked about before. The good news is that we did get the Massachusetts House's vote on the Protect Act, and now it's moving on to the Senate. So we're asking people to please email their senators, their state senators, and there is an Action Network letter campaign that takes like 2 minutes to fill out. The email template is already there for you, and you just click the link, put in your address, and it automatically detects your senator and sends it out to them. That's the first one. The second one is another action alert for 2 budget items that we are requesting. One of them is funding for MACI, our Massachusetts Access to Counsel initiative. That's something that would help immigrants facing deportation to access legal resources and assistance. And then the other budget item is funding for the Citizenship for New Americans program. So if that is something you would like to support, there is a very similar setup action alert for that as well. Yeah.
Make sure to include those links so
Great.
folks have access. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, the thank you goes right back to you. And you know, this is again just another just opportunity. Just again, thank you for the time. Thank you for sharing your stories. And you know, we wish you more than just success, but also an opportunity to come back another time to hear the evolution of your story from what we've heard to where we'll end up. So again, thank you for being just vulnerable, personable, actionable, and all the things. And that's what this GenUnity community is about. And so
Thank you. Thank you all for the opportunity for for making the space to have the conversation and giving us the opportunity to tell a little bit about our stories. Certainly look forward to continue working together in one way or another. So thanks again to both of you.
go. Well, again, the major thank you to our guest, Sophia Maroni. Another major shout out to Whitney for allowing me to to pretend like I'm some kind of co-host in this. I mean, Whitney's the real star here. You all know that. I'm just here just to read the
No.
scripts. But no, for real. And I hope you have enjoyed this conversation, and look forward to another conversation with you another time with more great members from GenUnity and more stories, just to keep us going. So
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.